I'm Emma Easterbrook and this is Practicing Human 360 Health. My guest today is Hayley Peacock. She's a pioneer in education. She's disrupting the norm of traditional education and having her own revolution worldwide. She has her own nurseries and has just opened her own school in 2020 for 4 to 16-year-olds. She often talks on the world stage about education and has won countless awards and accolades for her work so far. Thank you so much for coming today, Hayley.
You are so welcome. It's a pleasure.
It's very exciting to have you eventually in the chair.
I know. It did take quite a while to sort it out.
You're a very busy person.
I know. I'm sorry. I am very busy. But it's an absolute pleasure. And I love your studio and the whole vibe is great.
There's so many things that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you obviously about the nurseries and about Atelier 21 Future School, which you've set up. But what I initially want to talk to you about, just to sort of set where we are, which I'm hoping you've never been asked before, is when you were a student and you were learning, did you ever think during that time you didn't like how it was being done or thought, why don't you do it this way?
When I was at school, it was very traditional, and I had a very interesting experience of school because I actually came from a very different demographic than the other people I went to school with. Uh-huh. So I think that slightly, in some ways, kind of swerves my kind of thoughts on school, if you like.
How so?
Well, so I come from a very working class family, and so nobody in my family had ever been to university, and let alone private school. I mean, private school was a completely different world of which no generation in either side of my mum or dad's history or ancestry had ever gone anywhere near. So I got a scholarship to go to a boarding school aged 11, which was my own idea. I basically went to my mum when I was about 9 and said, I want to go to boarding school because I've been reading The Twins of St Clair's, like literally.
Yes.
And I thought, well, that sounds fun, kind of dorm feasts and stuff. And she sort of laughed in my face and said, yeah, really good one. Absolutely never going to happen. And I was like, but I really want to go. And she said, okay, well, I'll look into it. And basically there was a kind of a scholarship, a foundation scholarship, effectively for, girls that would never be able to afford it, that I could go for. And she said, you could go for this if you like. You'd have to work really hard, for a year and do lots of extra maths and whatever. And so, anyway, I did get that scholarship, which was really amazing. And it really kind of, I think, in lots of ways framed the rest of my life. And so my experience of school life was actually very positive, but almost in a way, I think a lot because I sort of always felt like I didn't really deserve to be there. Do you know what I mean?
So did you feel like a bit of a spectator within that environment?
Well, it was more just that I had to get used to being different. I didn't have ponies and skiing holidays and holiday homes and lots of new clothes. And, I just didn't have the things that the other girls had, which wasn't a problem. But when you're 11, it did take me probably into my 30s to get over that kind of hang up, if I'm being honest. But for that, so I always kind of felt, very lucky to be there. Ultimately, I didn't feel it wasn't a negative thing. It was a positive thing. I felt very lucky to be there, and it opened up a whole world of aspiration, I think, that hadn't really been explored. I hadn't explored because it wasn't necessarily in my immediate world. It wasn't that, people were not working in my family. Everyone was working hard, but it perhaps wasn't, I didn't know what another life looked like. And this opened up a world of like, wow, if you work really hard, you can really have a life, And so that sort of framed a lot of my experience of school. But the parts that I think you're referring the question to, for me, were when I look back, even though I did love school, the actual learning in the classroom bit, I don't personally have any really negative connotations because I actually enjoy learning. I love learning. So I'm a real lifetime learner. So I think the kind of, I didn't have a problem with learning. I was also fairly bright enough. So I definitely wasn't super bright, but I was bright enough to be able to cope with the work, etc. And I had friends and whatever. So it was all kind of like a fairly pleasant experience. But I definitely remember the sort of shame-based type teaching method. And I definitely remember that kind of the feeling of your job in school as a child is to be compliant, number one.
Yeah.
So be compliant, number one. Don't be inconvenient. in any way. So, you know, don't cause a fuss.
Don't rock the boat.
Don't cause a fuss. Feelings or big feelings kind of, you know, upset people. So, you know, don't have them if you can help it. And, you know, kind of definitely don't challenge authority. That's not okay. And so I didn't have a terrible experience of school like some people did. However, that experience of knowing that my job is to stay in the box like a very good girl was definitely a thing.
So it's, so you're not to rock the boat. You don't want to rock the boat. I did actually listen to one of your podcasts, and you mentioned about a writer or an educator that mentioned about 3 types of children.
Yes.
Which I think would be really interesting for you to tell people that are listening, because I thought, actually that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you've got the rich child, the sleepy child,
and the poor child. That's correct, yeah. Right. And then you have the teacher for each of those type of children. Yeah. So this comes from Loris Malaguzzi, who's the sort of known as the founder of the Reggio Emilia approach.
Which is what you inspired. Yes. Your school is inspired by, isn't it?
Yeah. So the Reggio Emilia approach is the underpinning values and principles, what we call the pedagogy, which is kind of the science of teaching and learning.
Well, this is a new word for me because I actually had to look it up.
Yeah, most people do.
So it's basically how you teach and how you learn, isn't it?
Yeah. So rather than being the curriculum, which is basically, people know the word curriculum, and that's what we intend for children to learn. So that's like learning objectives. We want them to know this by this age. We want them to be able to do this and know this by this age, and that there's something written down for those skills, usually divided into subjects like science or maths or literacy or art or whatever. We want children to know how to do this and know this at this age, this age and this age. Yeah. That's kind of how the curriculum works. It's a bit like I say to people, imagine if you've got a plans for a fantastic house. So the drawings of the house, what it's going to look like in the end, are this fabulous architect's drawings. That's your curriculum. Yeah. The tools and the way you go about the method to build it, that's your pedagogy. So you can have the most fantastic drawing, fantastic curriculum with these great intentions for them to know and be able to do all these things at different ages. If you try and build it with a spoon, it probably won't do its job, right? So pedagogy is the most important thing in education, and I think it crosses so nicely back to why I think you've invited me here, because we are we're living in a time where how we do everything matters. Not just what we design to do, if that makes sense. Yeah. So what we design to create or what we design will be the outcome is very different to the method of that. Yeah. And with children are, the one thing that matters the most is relationships. So the relationship that we have with children has to have a direct correlation with how we teach them, how we work with them in schools. And so pedagogy is about the how, really. And so our how approach is underpinned from this approach called Reggio Emilia approach, comes from Northern Italy, and it's an incredible approach which sees children as competent and capable to build learning for themselves and with others, and most of all connected to other people right from birth. So we're looking through a lens in a different way to how we approach the point of school. Really. Yeah. So, for example, instead of thinking about school as a place where children come who are empty, and then we're going to fill them with loads of stuff so we can deliver that curriculum, all those little learning objectives, they can do this, they can do this, they can do that, which automatically implies the deficit model, that child is in deficit of those things before we teach them. Whereas the Reggio approach, what that's saying is that children are born into the world full of competency, capability, connectivity with the world around them, other people, nature, and therefore our job is to build on what they can already do and stretch and introduce new things, of course, but build on the way that they naturally learn. And also our job as teachers is to research them. Yeah. Research them as they research the world around them.
And that also is about a mutual respect, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Because in the olden days, and one of the things that really sticks out to me is when we first met and you said to me, education hasn't changed in the last 100 years, but the world has. Absolutely. And that really struck a chord with me because I thought, yes, actually, that I can't think of anything truer. Yeah. So I think that God, where was I going with that? Because I'm still on rich child, poor child.
Yeah, I didn't finish it. I'll finish it if you like.
Yeah. Can you explain that? Because it's not what it says on the tin.
Yeah,
There's
it's really
a meaning behind it.
So Malaguzzi basically, I use this all the time in my training, by the way. It's like a really core part of my training. So it's great you brought it up because it's so important. So Malaguzzi talked about there being 3 different types of children: the rich child, the sleepy child, and the poor child. And that doesn't mean anything to do with finances or money or anything like that, or being asleep. What it actually refers to is the poor child is the child that needs complete direction, basically, doesn't have any agency of their own, and that they need to be effectively told what to do, when to do it, and they're kind of low in capital of agency, ability to think for oneself, to do for oneself, to try for oneself. And so they need constant direction. The awake but sleepy child is the child who can think in some part of their own, but doesn't really trust themselves to do things by themselves. So is kind of interested and alert, but is very much waiting for the kind of permission to do things and try things. Whereas the rich child is rich with capital, rich with agency, rich with thinking, ideas, and the gumption and knowledge that they can learn for themselves and will try things and do things for themselves. So what he's saying in terms of education, because the Reg approach is an educational approach, is that those three children have 3 types of teachers that essentially either keep them in that state, or they try to move them to become the rich child that can be independent, ultimately, and autonomous and full of agency. So a teacher for a poor child is the one who believes that they will only learn by being taught. Yeah. And the awake but sleepy child needs a teacher, or has a teacher that understands that they perhaps overestimate their role in that child's ability to learn, and therefore they will give them some independence, but ultimately at the core of it they feel they need to control the situation. And the rich child, the teacher who is able to enable a rich child, is the one that understands the child has plenty of competency and ability to learn for themselves, and becomes a facilitator of that, becomes an agitator of that child's thinking. In my approach and what we've developed at Atelier 21, we call it being a problemator. Right. So as an adult, you become a problemator of children's thinking. So you make their thinking more dynamic and more complicated in order to stretch them, in order to bring them to some of those learning objectives that they will learn, but not always a result of just direct teaching. I mean, because learning and teaching are 2 different things. Yeah,
well, that makes total sense to me, because I know your school. Yeah. But anybody else that's listening to this...
It sounds like, I know, bananas.
And the people say to me, oh, what school does he go to? Yeah. You know, and I'll say, oh, it goes to Atelier 21. It's a future school. Oh, what's that? And I say, it's a really difficult concept to explain to you, because people immediately think they're running around... in like flowing clothes,
it's and nothing like that,
chancing, and it's just not.
It's nothing like that.
It's very much about encouraging becoming an entrepreneur. Yeah, it's about thinking. It's about individual thought and solution-based thinking. Yes. So that when they go out into the world, this is what my take is on it. Yeah. That when they go out into the world, they can solve any problem. Yeah. And they're a free thinker.
Yeah, they've got a toolkit. That's the thing. Yeah, it's actually it's got that kind of utopian ideal around it about being a free thinker, but actually, it's far more systematic than that. Yeah. What we're doing is it's actually very structured system in order to deliver education that's, relevant for their future rather than our past. That's one of our kind of, buzz lines, if you like. So going back to what you said about education not changing enough in the last, you say 100 years, I say 300 years. So if we look at pictures of Victorian classrooms, which was more than 100 years ago, then actually those classrooms don't look that different. No, of course they look different, but ultimately you've still got...
It's the desk in a row and looking at the board.
Looking at an adult, you've got an adult standing up at the front, you've got children sitting at desks, and you've got this kind of, I disseminate knowledge, you receive it, you do tasks, my job is done. Whereas it's proven beyond any reasonable doubt that there are way too many children suffering in school, or not just not enjoying school. And not that the goal is just to enjoy school. We obviously do absolutely need them to go and get qualifications and have those hard skills as well as the soft skills, you know, the kind of collaboration, communication, creativity, that's important too. We also do need them to have the hard skills, you know, absolutely, the literacy, the maths, the science, and, you know, all those things. But what we do need to make sure at the very heart of it is that children learn to love learning. Because if you don't love learning, then you're not going to be a lifelong learner. And what is very clear is that it doesn't matter where you are, in what stage of life, at any point in your childhood, adolescence, adulthood and beyond, you know, an old age, you're always learning and growing. Every single day we're getting millions of different types of stimuli that are constantly reshaping our neurons and making us change our mind about things and try something and get better at it, or fail,
but
or leave it, or lean into something. Some people
don't constantly learn or change their minds. They get very set in their ways, and I think that's a big problem.
It's
in
a
the
huge
world.
problem.
You know, so from where I'm sitting and about this podcast, it's called Practicing Human 360 Health, which is about everything you consume, whether it's what you eat, what you watch, who you listen to, you know, who you hang out with, and anything has an impact on your health. And I think what you're doing is getting to the grassroots of that. And so it's developing these skills within people. So that they can be a fully rounded person and not be that kid that was in a classroom that's, what's 8 times 8? You know, and or how do you spell this? And they didn't, you know, didn't know what the answer was. They feel immediate shame.
Exactly.
You know, so, and then they recoil and they think, oh no, well, I'll stay where I am now then.
Exactly. And it's 100% that. But learning to be a learner in adulthood, as well as childhood, but in adulthood it has to be quite a strategic process. It doesn't just, you don't just one day wake up and say, I'm going to learn to cope with life better, and then that's it. That's not how it works, right? We wouldn't have such industries that are booming with, you know, in therapies and other, if it was that easy. So ultimately what it comes back to for me, and the reason I started Atelier 21, is because making yourself and keeping yourself happy as an adult is the hardest thing you'll do. Without doubt. And it doesn't matter how much money you've got, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. It's all relative. Of course, some of those external pressures make things way tougher. Of course they do. Health-wise, finances-wise, etc. They can really affect how easy it is to recover from difficulty. But ultimately, and how much access you have to support, of course. But the bottom line is that nobody gets out of this world without suffering, right? Without pain. And actually, I say pain, not suffering, because I've got a great saying at the moment, which is that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I think that's relevant here, because what we're trying to do, as well as get the grades, because children need those to open doors. And there's also wonderful things to learn about the world, about maths, about literature. There's wonderful things, books to read, and conversations to have, and debates to have, and knowledge to be, you know, to be gobbled up at school. But actually, as well as all of that, what's I believe is just as if not more important is that young children's brains are literally wired to be a learner. Because then they automatically respond in a different way than most of us do. So our automatic responses from difficulty, from emotional challenge, from not being able to achieve something we want to, whatever, is defensiveness, pity for ourselves, blame on other people. And it's a combination of those kind of negative, quite toxic self dialogue, right? That, you know, it's either not my fault or I'm rubbish or whatever. This is what's holding me back in life. Whereas what I want more than anything is for those children to get into adulthood or, you know, later adolescence, and their brain's automatic response to difficulty is, okay, I probably need to try something different. Or, okay, how do I need to self-adjust here? So I talk about it being a system to build a culture of self-adjustment into that child in a very strategic way. And we have very strategic classroom routines and habits and systems that we use every day in our language of learning type thing. It's actually we call it Learnish, the Atelier language. So we speak in a language that other schools don't, because we're constantly reiterating to children right from, 4 years old and before that, even in the nurseries, what it is to be a learner. So when we feel that feeling of, oh, can't do it, don't want to do it, something's gone wrong, we're constantly modelling and practicing how to get ourselves out of the learning pit. That's one of our routines. And what tools do we now need that we've learned and practiced and use every day to recover?
Yeah.
And therefore, what happens is the neurons fire and fire and fire in the same direction in this language, in this paradigm, in this state. And so, therefore, they strengthen. And you end up with an adult whose automatic reaction to difficulty in any kind of challenge, emotional, whatever, is reflection.
Yeah.
Self-reflection. Pause. Okay.
I'm the common denominator here. And so what can I do?
Yeah. And actually that, learning and growth and your mindset and your life and your impact on other people's lives is your responsibility.
Yes.
And that's a big thing I think that's missing.
So,
from a lot of people is that it's kind of like, it's not fair on me because, and it's like, you do realise that everything is just a sum of your own, mostly a sum of your own decisions.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll be very interested to see what your take is. So having experienced for the last 6 years, Atelier 21, and the children that have walked through the door, and the parents that have come with them, I expect there's been some disagreements or misunderstandings like you would have. What would you say to people? Because obviously the parents are unlearning their 100% behaviours as well, and their approach to school and their approach to learning.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
It's just a whole, it just like, it comes through every single, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It cross sections all the time.
It does.
And it forever moves.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Because obviously some people are going to get really hung up on grades. That's what they're going to do. And why aren't they getting, why isn't this child getting an A star, or or why isn't this work coming in like this, and why doesn't it look like this? How do you deal with that? Because this is a constant moving stage, isn't it?
I think we actually have a lot less of that. And the reason is that when we first opened, we had a massive amount of attention. So we had, it was like, whoa, this really radical school.
Yep.
And loads of people were coming in the door, and loads of people wanted to look around and see. And we had lots of people join the school quite quickly within the first couple of years. And it was in COVID, as you remember. So we grew quite quickly. We started with 43 on day one. And then we, within a couple of years, we were up to the sort of 80s. So and it's a small school anyway. We only go to about 150 odd. And so I think what happened in the beginning, and this was a learning for me, absolutely, was that everybody decided they knew what the school was about according to their own agenda.
Yeah.
So if you were somebody who, just loved what I was saying, for example, and what the school was about and what we talked about on the website and what we wrote about, then you were there for that because you thought this is a great idea. And then you had other people who were there because they tried other types of schools and they perhaps didn't work out. And so in their mind, what you are to them in a paid for service frames in their mind what you're there to do.
Yeah.
And so even though you explain what our priorities are and how this is about school plus, this isn't academics or other things. This isn't we just worry about creativity or soft skills or whatever. It's not about that. It's absolutely both. And in fact, it's one way to get to the other. So we want the children to attain really highly. We'd love to see loads of them go off to university if that's what they want. We expect them all to thrive, get great grades, and we work very hard for that to be the case. What we don't believe is that you will achieve that through shame, purely a compliance, obedience model, overpressure. Because even if you do get the grades, you'll have done some damage elsewhere. And we see that. I've seen it with my own son.
We've seen it because we've discussed it with previous schools that our children have been to, one of which is the same.
Exactly.
And there is a lot of pressure. It becomes very much an exam factory.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's about poor mental health.
Yes.
Because they're so stressed.
Exactly.
They're almost burnt out by the age of 16.
They are burnt out,
And so I really liked the idea, because I've got 3 older daughters that went through lots of different avenues because
Yeah.
one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting to try something new.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
With Teddy coming to you.
Yeah.
And I find it a really fascinating thing. And also, I do see it, and this isn't, I do see it as an experiment.
Well, it is an experiment
yeah.
in some ways, because I think it's much less of an experiment now after 6 years. In the beginning, there is no other school like Atelier 21, right, in the world. Now, there are lots of schools doing very progressive things, not many in this country, sadly, which says a lot about the UK. But actually, the things that we do at Atelier are really quite normalised now in many other countries. Many other countries work from a place of inquiry. They have inquiry-led curriculum. So children are learning about things in order to learn facts and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They take an inquiring approach. This is a very well practiced way of working. It's evident in the American curriculums. It's evident in the PYP, the IB. I mean, it's all over the place. I work in many countries helping people with this type of work. And so in the beginning, this was a big set of very bold and ambitious ideas with a lot of experience from me in terms of the Reg approach and a desire to prove that mainstream, full-time registered school could be done in a different way by bringing some of these ideas that are already practiced in many other countries in progressive schools. It wasn't a kind of like, no one's ever tried any of this ever. That wasn't it. So we took influences from Scandinavian forest schools movement and introduced Wild Fridays, as you know. We took inquiry-based approach and introduced, big studies, and the MYP is an inquiry-based approach, etc. So it was a collection of knowledge and acumen from some people and from myself. And then the bit that we had to try and prove was how we could take the UK national curriculum and deliver those hard objectives through this route, which we've more than done. And so even though, but this, like you said, you had to look up the word pedagogy, right? So, and that's, I don't mean that in any disrespect from you. To be honest with you, I speak to a lot of teachers and educators who don't actually use the word pedagogy very often, which is scary, I mean, I thought
it was one of your words you'd made up.
It's not one of my words I made up. I know, it's problemator. Yeah, I like making up words. But I promise you, pedagogy is absolutely not a word I made up. I mean, yeah.
I did look it up.
There'd be educators all over the world laughing at that. So, but the fact that the relationship between parenting and education is so interwoven, it takes up so much of your life, your child's life. It has such an influence on your life, your child's life, right? You're trusting your children with these teachers, these educators, these school organisations, and most parents don't even understand the word pedagogy. That is problematic to me.
Yes.
That's problematic. We need to have more conversations about how we teach our children in order to do what you're trying to do, get them to become a practicing human, right? And that's really all I'm trying to achieve, is that they have the toolkit to become really good at great humaning. And later, great adulting.
So I think this episode of Practicing Human 360 Health is sponsored by my wellness clinic, Star Treatment in Henfield. Come and check me out on Instagram at StarTreatment24. It's really nicely into the fact that you offer IB rather than GCSE, which is a lot of people also think, oh, what's that? Or it's a bit woo-woo, or, a bit out there. And it's so not.
It's so not. And it's also practiced in most other countries around the world. Now, I mean, it's kind of crazy.
My understanding of IB is this, right? So if somebody was to do GCSEs, they would be asked the questions and they would be answering the questions and they'd be getting points for each word or, opinion or whatever they got right in that. My understanding of IB is that you learn, so the kids choose, so for instance, Teddy did where he was growing vegetables. And so there was the science in that, so the pH balance of the soil, there was the practicalities of actually, digging in the seeds and then, harvesting them. And then he sold them at the business fair at school. And so then that was the market value, so it was a whole 360 again. I do love it, but that whole 360 approach. So you're learning about an entire thing that you're actually interested in and finding the subjects to be
we call it cross-curricular.
Right. So is there anything that there's any misconception there?
No, I mean, obviously the whole system, the IB, is very dynamic and very interesting, and it has so many more parts to it. Not that we need to go into the detail of it, but ultimately, yes, you're correct. The difference between doing GCSEs is that the point of GCSEs is to learn subjects in isolation, like we're studying geography, and now we're studying history, and we're going to do maths, and then we're going to do literacy. Whereas the IB is trying to develop the learner, again, a learner profile. So somebody who is connected, globally aware, autonomous, can think for themselves, got creativity, communication skills, resilience. All of these things become the learner profile. So over the course of them doing the 5 years of the MYP at Atelier, they develop those skills. And through developing those skills, they're also learning the content that would sit inside a GCSE geography exam and a maths exam, etc. But they do that through real world application. Yeah. So what you're talking about is a cross-curricular way into learning the geography, the science, the art, the design technology, the maths, the entrepreneurship of growing vegetables, harvesting them and selling them. So it's real world learning, which also people call project-based learning or inquiry-based learning. And what it does is it's got 8 specific modules, if you like, learning areas. So rather than saying geography, history are 2 separate subjects, we call it individuals and societies. So that is a humanities, which is geography and history in most schools, humanities, but it also crosses into politics and environmental sciences and things like that. So the point is that the world is a complex weave of lots of things together. I mean, even if you just take the geography and history of a place, you take any country and study its geography, it will have been impacted by its history. Yeah. If you take the history of any place and look at its history, it will have been impacted by its geography. Yeah. So the world is not in silos, but yet we're still teaching and delivering exams as if it's just in a silo. But that's not how the world works. And what we need to think about is, what's the point of school? Like Guy Claxton's book, he's our patron at Atelier 21, and, a major kind of educational author, thought leader, cognitive scientist of the last 20 years. He's Atelier's patron, and he's written a whole number of books, one which is brilliant for parents called What's the Point of School? And it's not a kind of educator's book, it's an everybody book, and it's just a really good page turner, actually. And, in that book, he makes the case that what we want out of education is very different now to when we first started building classrooms and desks and chairs and whiteboards and chalkboards and having teachers stand up. What we needed then was children to be basically educated in order to join the workforce and push on the Industrial Revolution. That's where it came from. Well, we've got the same method, but we're trying to create something very different. Education is not for that now. Education is so that children will grow up, be participants, not just consumers. They will progress society. They will contribute to society. Yes, that will mean joining the workforce, absolutely. But we want a whole different range of things out of them. And actually the skills that they need, again, not just because it sounds nice, but because it's clearly proven, they need more than ever in this fast-changing, uncertain future, which none of us really know what's going to look like for our children in 2 years, let alone 20. Yeah. So they absolutely need to be able to learn things, to be able to recover, to be able to have self-management skills, to be able to adjust, quickly pivot and adjust, change their mind, listen, take feedback, give feedback, contribute, have passion, have communication skills. These are the sorts of things that we have industries booming to teach us in our 40s how to do this stuff. Yeah. Right? They're like billion dollar and pound industries across the world to teach adults how to adult.
Yeah.
You know, companies spend...
Oh, it's nanny state, isn't it?
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Companies, we spend, literally so much money in companies having to put training into adults in how to work as a team, to try to be more agile, to try to be more open-minded, to try to be able to receive and give feedback better. If we just teach those things in school, we're going to have those 4-year-olds. If 4-year-olds in my school talk in a way that they do now, which sounds like this: oh, I've just heard your idea, Emma, and I'm going to add on to that idea because I think we should add this to our block play, whatever, right? I've seen your drawing of a butterfly, Emma, and I think that it's nearly there, but I think you need to make the wings a little bit more pointy because I think that'll achieve what... That's how the 4 and 5-year-olds talk in my classrooms, right? Imagine those kids and their skills at 20.
Okay, so how do we get that rolled out to everybody?
You support pioneering.
Because the issue that I see now is, we have certain world leaders that are not emotionally intelligent, do not possess any empathy whatsoever.
True.
And that's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
So how do we roll this out so that all of these, everybody can be enlightened? Yeah. And I had this epiphany the other day, and I can't remember who I was talking to, but I've realised I was talking to my brother, right? So there's some people who possess empathy and some people who don't. Can you teach people empathy?
I believe you can, absolutely. I think you can teach anything. And I think...
Is it when they're much younger though?
I think it's a lot easier when they're younger because literally the neuroscience of the developing brain from infancy and early childhood it's much more, the plasticity is higher, right? So it's just more moldable. That's why, and this is what's so interesting and lovely to have the opportunity to talk in this depth, because Atelier is built from early years up. Right, so our pedagogy, our science of our teaching and learning,
use that word so much now. I can't tell you.
Our how of how we do it, rather than just what we know we need to assess, right? Yeah. Which is part of our school. Don't get me wrong, but we also talk a lot about how we do things and what's optimal for the children to learn, not what's optimal for us to teach. There's a big difference. A lot of schools spend a lot of time talking about what do we need to do to make the teaching more convenient for us, because the children aren't responding the way they should. And so we need more intervention. We need more one-to-ones. We need more this. We need more stricter behaviour. We end up with schools like the Michaela School, where they don't speak in classrooms and they're harangued if they don't, get into school 1 second past the bell. And that's promoted as being this incredibly successful way of doing things. That's really frightening to me. Whereas what we're asking questions of is, what do we need to change in ourselves as adults, in the environment of school, the environment of the classes, both physical environment, as in what are the right combination of seating, what sort of soft lighting works best, do we have music, when do we have it, when does it make the learning optimal? Because we're basing it on the neuroscience of the learning brain. And the learning brain doesn't learn best when put into a emotional environment of stress, compliance, shame, or ultimate obedience overall.
Also, can I add to that, nutritionally...
And boring curriculum.
Nutrition is so important, because our gut health, everything we put into our gut feeds every system in our body.
100%.
So that has to be an education, for pure understanding of that. So it's, it's like all the sugar that's been offered. Apart from the mobile phone. Yeah. It's so isolating. And then what's happening is, you see kids that are in their late teens, and they can't talk to somebody. I know. They can't have a conversation.
I know. It's scary. It's scary stuff. And that's why, I find it really interesting and novel, not in a kind of disrespectful way, but I find it novel that people think what we do is radical. Because for me, putting 5-year-olds in little woolen blazer coats and stiff ties, that's pretty radical. Yeah. Right? How's that not that's radical. Yeah. By definition of the word radical, that is so far against the natural.
Yeah.
You know, a child in a natural state is not going to go and pull out a shirt and tie and a woolen blazer.
No way.
And, you know, itchy grey socks and say, I must have them pulled up to this part of my leg. None of that works with the developing brain or also the inherent capabilities of children. So when I say that Atelier 20 is built early years up, what I mean is, it doesn't mean we do things that are babyfied or infantile or anything like that. Far from it. What I'm saying is that we take the neuroscience of the developing infant and we think about how they learn through their senses, through doing, through trying things out, through playing, literally through playing, through also, relationship, through back and forth with an adult.
Failure, mistake of the week.
And exactly, through learning, through trying and recovering and trying again. If you've got an adult that allows you to do that.
Yeah, well, show me an entrepreneur that hasn't failed lots and lots of times.
That's my whole life.
Yeah, because it's about that curiosity, isn't
100%.
it? And just like, right, okay, that didn't work, so I'm going to try this. I'm going to just sort of do it this way a little bit now.
Self-adjustment.
Yeah, and that's what I loved when we walked around initially with Teddy. One of the things was mistake of the week.
Yeah.
And it was celebrated, a mistake that somebody had made.
Exactly.
Because it was an opportunity to learn from it.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity to learn from it, but it's also, like I was saying earlier, about the language of learning we use. So if we're seen as adults and as a community and as other children, if your child enters the school and suddenly people talk about, I made a great smart mistake, or I made a sloppy mistake, because actually they know the difference, because we all make sloppy mistakes and we all make smart mistakes. Smart mistakes are where we're like, that helped me, because I've got the curious mindset and I've got the power of self-adjustment, and I've got the ability to put space between the thing that feels uncomfortable and my actual reaction to it. Yeah. So I've learnt that tool. Put some space, be curious, turn the dial to curious, which is what I literally say. And then suddenly you learn something out of that mistake, right? That episode, that thing that happened. Sloppy mistakes are we're just being, humans, and we make sloppy mistakes, right? Yeah. We make them 25 million times a day. We make them in adulthood every day, and we're incredibly accommodating and vulnerable about it, and other people are usually very empathetic. And if you have your colleague come in and they're having a hard time and they've had a really bad run of something happening at home, and everybody makes allowances for them, and they're not, kids don't get away with that. No, they come in on a bad day, then you're not performing. Yeah, and we don't meet them where they're at. Because all we're thinking about is grades and compliance. This has come up. No wonder we have mental health problems in young people.
100%. So this has come up a couple of times in all the other podcasts that I've done, that there's a strength in vulnerability. Yeah. So the minute you say the thing that brings you shame, you take away its power. Yeah. And so if you're teaching a child to do that, on a minuscule thing, I don't know, they might be embarrassed because somebody walked in, they were going to the toilet, or whatever it is, a tiny little thing, but it's massive for them. Of course, you take away the power of that, and then you take away that vulnerability, don't you? Because it's gone. So I think it's a really fantastic way for you to be helping develop these little humans.
Yeah, well, it's just putting loads of influence. All we can do as parents, right, is just surround our children with the influence we want. Yep. We want in their world. We want them to hear certain conversations. We want them to see certain things. We want them to experience certain things. We want them to feel certain things, loved but also challenged, inspired, as well as disrupted positively. Right. We all these things make the child's brain develop. Literally every neuron, every second. And so for me, I'm presenting a school for parents that I think when I talk to parents, pretty much every parent really ever, and every teacher also ever, nobody says, I really think the best environment for my child is one that is shame-based, compliance-driven, and is all about grades. That's the influence I want my child to have. And I really do believe that influence will be the thing that makes the best of my child and what they've been given at birth, and will amplify their skills, their aspirations, their talents, and their and inspire them to go out and find out more about the world and lean into what is interesting and challenging for them in a good way. Nobody ever says that. No. So what I'm doing is I'm simply saying, look, let's work with the science of the place. This isn't fluffy. This is neuroscience. how human beings learn right from birth. It's well documented in the early years that we learn. And in the early years in education, we respect playfulness. We respect playful rigor. And we don't do that in traditional school. Mm-hmm. So it's okay for children to play up to the age of 4 or 5.
And then they get in a desk.
Suddenly nothing else matters. It's handwriting, it's reading, it's writing. It doesn't matter if the child's ready for it. It doesn't matter if they're showing signs. It's the same. It's as absurd as if we were to take if we all decided nationally we all had to potty train our children at 2 and it became like national rule, right? Right, all children have to be potty trained at 2. It would be as absurd as taking a 2-year-old who wasn't ready to use the toilet and making them use the toilet and then haranguing them when they had an accident. Yeah. It's that ridiculous. So we're taking 4 and 5-year-olds and then 5 and 6-year-olds, 6 and 7-year-olds, you know, up to the age of 7, 8 years old, where they really need playful rigor in their world. And that's what pioneering is. Yeah. It's an approach for schools all around the world to teach through playful rigor, because we're not saying rigor doesn't matter. We're saying let's have rigor in a way that works for children and makes learning in school feel relevant, meaningful and joyful to do. Yeah. And the lovely kind of golden egg about it is that it's really lovely for the teachers too. Yeah. You know, I work with a school in London who are pioneering school and have adapted our approach, and as well as many others, but I worked very intensively with them over the last 2 years. And I was just there on Friday I worked with about 28 of their staff, from their 2-year-olds up to their 8-year-olds at the school. There's about 240 children in the school who are doing pioneering. And after 18 months now, they are really seeing the benefits. So just on Friday, they were telling me how parents are drawing references between their older children when they were this age and how much more interested in learning, how much more curious, how much more talkative, how their language skills are more, how they're just running into the door of school every day compared to their older children at this age, where once they left the school's nursery or reception class, suddenly it was like this really jarring experience of being sat at banks of tables and having exercise books and having to write when we really haven't learned to write. More importantly, haven't learned to love writing. Yeah. So our approach in pioneering basically teaches, you know...
But also not everybody is going to love writing, because we've all got different skill sets for things. There might be somebody that's really good at writing. There might be somebody that's really good at science. True.
But you can learn something you can love something you're also not naturally really good at. Yeah. You know, you can still enjoy it.
I'm interested to know if you I don't know much about the nurseries, but you know what I do know is about Atelier 21. If it was 2020 again and you knew what you knew now, would you do anything differently?
Oh, everything. Literally everything. Yeah, of course. I'd do everything different. I mean, we've built our pedagogical system and our curriculum, and it's very, very together now. It might not be something that you experience as a parent in quite the detail, because you don't need to in truth. This is a technical approach to how we do things.
Wobbly stool? Because when we first joined, you told us about the wobbly stool, that the different leg lengths. Yeah. So you're going to make a mistake and it's going to drop down, but then it sort of finds its balance and it drops again, and that's just about learning and development in the environment what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly that. When you ask about would I do things differently, it's not, if you're starting on a journey where you're going to design and create something that's never been designed and created before, there is only one road, and that's through it. Yeah. Right? There's not really a way of planning how you do. I did the best I could possibly do to plan and write the policies, and I had help from an Ofsted inspector, for example, for a whole year to have these policies and these plans for how the school would work. And largely, much of that is in place. But what we've done is we've developed really, really dynamic kind of structures and processes and depth to how we teach, so that it's scalable to all of our teachers and as the school scales. So it doesn't become that it's only good because this particular person's good at it. You have to take it out of that. You have to start with that, and then you have to curate it, design it. It's kind of like an alchemy in the first couple of years of really capable people who already lean into this type of work, otherwise they wouldn't be there. They already believe in this way of educating, and then together you literally do plan, do, review. You know, you keep reviewing what works. Right, we need a little system for this. Oh, we could enhance that. We've got another little learning routine and little self-reflection routine we could introduce at class meeting, which helps children think about X, X and X, whatever. So we've now got a real pedagogical framework, very detailed framework to how we do what we do. And that's what other people in other schools are now learning from in our other programmes.
There's massive value to that, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, because, well, you pioneered it, and so you can put something out there now that won't have the same mistakes. It will have its own mistakes,
of course, everything.
Because that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But I think it's invaluable what you've done. If you could suggest a book for a student and a parent, it's a bit of an odd one to read. I know you mentioned the Reggio Emilia one. What would you suggest?
What's the Point of School by Guy Claxton? 100%.
Right. Okay.
Because everybody can read that. Okay. And it's not an educator's book. It's both an educator's and it's a person book. It's a book that will speak to everybody, because we've all been through education of some type.
Yeah.
We've all had an education, whether it be, whether you were homeschooled or went to the most traditional and strict school. It really doesn't matter. And it's really it's a book that explores what do we want from our children in the next generation? What do we want them to be able to do? What do we what are our desires as parents and as educators and as people in a world which is so fast changing? So what is it that we really need? And therefore, what do we need? So therefore, what is the point of school and what should it be trying to achieve? Because a lot of what we're doing is running the opposite way. When we want a sunset, we're actually, we want a sunset, but we're heading in the opposite direction, thinking we're going to chase it, because we talk about wanting our children to be able to advocate for themselves and be confident and speak up and have agency and have ideas and be really curious and find things out and have tools to be able to, navigate this fast changing world, let alone you bring in AI and all of that stuff. But our traditional education system does the absolute opposite. And the worst part of it is that it does the opposite at the very time in a child's life where they have the most capacity for that type of learning, because young children have an incredible capacity for being able to think divergently. That's why toddlers will come up to you with a toy banana and say, "Granny's on the phone."
Yeah. Because
they can move between fantasy and reality without any explanation.
Oh, it's fluid, isn't it?
It's fluid. Yeah. So that is actually the bedrock of divergent thinking. And divergent thinking is the bedrock of creativity and therefore innovation. And innovation is the bedrock of human progress. So if we build schools where we take the neuroscience of the early infancy and early childhood, so how a child is learning through play, and we observe children, we really look at them and research, how is this child learning to solve their own problems? How are they, what they're doing, if you look carefully through play, is they're creating problems in order to solve them. And that's not just because unfortunately, we've got a very poor view of play as a sort of general society, because we think it's what children do when they need to entertain themselves. It isn't. It is a born strategy for learning right from birth.
Well, I think it's really creative. I often say to my children, when I was younger, my brother and I, we had nothing to do. There was, 3 channels on the TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You went out and play. You ran out. You got bored.
Yes.
And when you get bored, you get creative.
100%.
And so what the problem is, they've got all this stuff coming at them now, and it's just like, right, let's entertain you. Oh my God, we've got a spare day. Let's take you out for the day.
Exactly.
All of that kind of thing. Where actually there's normality in, let's cook a meal together. Let's, go for a walk.
Just go and play in the garden.
Yeah.
See what you do.
Go and pick
Poke
up some sticks and, do whatever.
Exactly.
And I think that there's so much value in that. I really do.
It's not even that there's so much value. It's so essential. Honestly, we are really missing a trick because, and the thing that's really frustrating is that educators in the early childhood phase, researchers, doctors, thought leaders who research and understand the neuroscience of early childhood education, especially up to sort of about 8 years and through primary. We know this. We talk about it. We write research papers about it. We're on campaign groups about it, etc. But somehow parents, as a kind of wide, general, kind of tarring everyone with one brush, which isn't correct, but people don't understand that play is it's a strategy for the brain to learn how to be in the world. Well, and how to understand the world. It keeps people
engaged. And also the other thing is, I always say to my children, if you're happy going to school, you're going to be happy working. And in the same way that when we go to work, if we're happy with the work we're doing, we're engaged and we're curious and we're sparked up by it. We're not, oh God, I've got to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's finding something, whatever you do, it's finding some joy in it, isn't
100%, it? Yes. Relevance, meaning and joy. That's the point of Atelier.
I've got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
How do you think this has changed you as a person, this whole process?
Atelier?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, so much. It's been one of the most incredible, joyful things I've ever done, and it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. Mm-hmm. Genuinely. It's so tricky because it's difficult in my position. If I was a teacher in the school, I don't think I'd say that, although they say it's pretty tough. It's hard work because it's so meaningful. Mm-hmm. And so you're trying to create this fantastic, optimal situation for the children rather than, being able to just deliver the curriculum off the shelf or the PowerPoints or the mm-hmm. worksheets, whatever. So, of course, they have to do a lot more thinking, but they enjoy it a lot more mm-hmm. as a result because things that are worth doing tend to be harder to do, right? But as the proprietor, obviously, I hold I have the unenviable job of holding the financial situation of the school. Mm-hmm. Small private schools, with VAT coming in, are mm-hmm. under a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. So that has been very tough because we've created something clearly incredible. Mm. And not only can I see that by the impact on the children, the staff, the pupils, my own children who have been through the school, who are so different to the one who didn't go through the school. So I really have that tangible impact. I can see it. But the world is watching. So, we've got waiting lists for cohorts of teachers all over the world who want to come and learn how we work. Mm. We've created Hayley Peacock Education as a result of that, in order to bring, like you're saying, well, how do we get this out there? Well, that's how we're trying to do it. Mm-hmm. Pioneering is our pedagogical approach, and Hayley Peacock Education is a company that kind of now, seeks to find additional funding for the school through disseminating our knowledge and our approaches and our toolkits to other teachers globally. So that's why I'm busy, because I'm going off to different countries and I'm promoting it and speaking at events and working with schools and etc. And we've just opened the Pioneering International Studio in Haywards Heath, which is really cool. So we have groups of teachers and educators that come to us. So they go on year-long programs to become a Pioneering educator in their own school to make a difference. And it's working. It's working incredibly well. So we're at this point now, we start writing books about it and things. But it has changed me because it's made me find what gets me up every single day, and I just seem to have an insatiable desire for it. It's like I don't see me ever getting bored of wanting to shake the world up to what we need to do in education. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to go, I'm all right. Like, I just can't see me being bored of it. So finding the thing that really lights me up is both brilliant and painful at the same time, because I have, like a lot of us that are quite deep feeling, probably yourself the same, I have like existential pain about the fact that I can't save the whole world. I can't save all the children in all the schools that are not having an optimum time, or all the teachers who don't yet know what they don't know because we haven't been able to show them there is another way. It doesn't have to be this hard. Yeah. So, it's frustrating not to be able to change more people's perspective more quickly. It's also the biggest joy to see the most incredible things happening, not only in our school, but in the schools we then support. That's like an extra joy. I think it's a bit like having grandchildren, I imagine. You've got your children doing well, like my school, and then you've got the other schools doing well. And that is just like the most amazing thing. This morning I had the head teacher from the big London primary school in South East London, which are very different kind of demographic, very different situation. Messaging me all these pictures of incredible children's work in year 2 because they're playing in school, and just how much impact it's having. And that is like a joy that I can't buy. which is amazing. It really is. However, yeah, it's really hard work. It's tough, and I wish we had more resources, because it's a tough time in the UK for something that ultimately is a luxury, and we don't have any choice but to do it as a private school. I'd love it to be free.
So I know that you're one of your I don't know how you describe it, but you say that you want to change 1 million children's lives.
Yeah.
So
To start with. That's important. Yeah.
So you're starting small.
Just start small. I'll go for the billion after that. Yeah.
So what's next?
Well, it's not. Well, what's next is that we continue what we're doing. I mean, we've been organising ourselves to have, you know, a proper place for educators around the world to learn from what we're doing and the impact it's having, so that we have proper toolkits, teacher systems that can be lifted and put into any classroom, in any curriculum, in any school around the world, because it's a way of teaching. It's not a curriculum, so it's different. So you can use pioneering over, you know, American curriculum, IB, Cambridge, PYP, whatever. It doesn't matter where your school is or what you're doing. This is about a teacher stance. This is about a way of building relationships with children and constructing educational concepts that are playfully rigorous, based on inquiry to develop curiosity and interesting to do, because you're using the things the children want to learn about for a start, you know, and build character. So character education, part of that is metacognitive routines in the classroom to help children with the language of being a self-adjuster, things that we were talking about. So we have these systems, these practices, these toolkits for educators, for schools to use, and now we're hell-bent on being able to get them into as many schools as possible, because we're passionate about helping the children that it will have an impact on, but also because we need the revenue to help our own school, because our school is like the research lab of all of this.
Yeah.
So, you know, we need to make sure our school is supported.
I feel like
so
we're the blueprint to something amazing. Do you know that?
That's the plan. You literally are. I mean, I'm indebted to the parents like you who trusted us in those first years, because, you know, and are still there, because none of this would have been possible if you didn't have the leap of faith, ultimately. So it's definitely a team. You know, it's a community.
Yeah, it feels like
achievement, isn't it? It's a community achievement.
What it feels like.
We needed you just as much as you needed us, and together, you know, it's not always easy. There are sometimes, of course, difference of opinion, etc. But everyone wants things
being
slightly
a community
different.
is, isn't it?
But that's the messy box of life.
Yeah, exactly. Because then otherwise we'd all just be bots that were the same.
Absolutely.
So if we all have, you know, if there are disagreements, then that's only a good thing.
Yes.
Because it means that you get to a deeper understanding of one another, hopefully.
100%.
You know?
And you get to model to the children how to work these things out, how to do good adulting.
Yeah.
Good adulting is not about having the answers. It's about having the method to try a number of things.
Necessarily about being right.
No, it's not about being right.
Because wherever you are, maybe your right looks different to other people as
100%.
well.
100%. It's about, you know, big part of the Regi approach, really big core defining principle is about different points of views, respecting different points of views. And that's not just from a kind of, you know, that sounds like it's something to do with respecting different tolerances and faiths. Obviously that's into it, but it's much deeper than that. That's just one side of the debate. It's about literally it's about developing a communication pathway and a tool where ideally all children grow up where their brains have been built to know how to respect different points of view in order to solve problems together, not in order just to listen, nod, and then speak, or listen, nod, and then be right, you know, you're wrong, I'm right, like you're saying. It's genuinely curiosity to lean into the other person's opinion, to think, well, what can I learn from this that I didn't know before?
Do you know, I've just recently studied DNA, and you probably know this because I didn't pay much attention in school at the time. But
I'm sure I don't.
I've just found this out. But when you test your DNA, all humans have about 99.9% of the same DNA.
Really?
So the difference in us is 0.1%.
Wow.
So we're more alike than
100%.
we're different.
100%.
And so I'm talking about different skin colours, you know, different eye colour, different hair colour, different body shapes, different. We're more alike than we are different.
100%.
And so I think that's a really important message for me, from what I'm trying to put across, and I think from what you're doing as well.
I say the same thing, which I'm now going to use and steal your stat, because that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm stealing that. But yeah, I say the same thing. We're far more alike than we are different. And actually, most people are having similar, you know, at the very heart of it, you know, we think we matter so much, and this sounds reductive, right? It sounds reductive.
We're just
we are just a bag of cells and bones walking around thinking this is all important. I mean, do you know why we're here?
No. I do lots of research into it. I think it is so.
Like, what are we doing here?
And actually, we don't know. So inconsequential in our galaxy.
Exactly.
You know, it's so. I just think. So
why not? The least we can do is be kind and open, and try and make the best of the time, and try and do something good, and make sure that we have proportion. You know, this is school. It is not a child's entire life. You know, you know, for some children, those doorways, you know, in terms of having that piece of paper, can be the difference between a life that could be on a very poor trajectory due to the unfortunate, you know, circumstances around them. So it's so important. Like, not one size fits all for everybody. It's complicated, you know. Even the schools where they've got these super strict policies now, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a good way to do it. But I see their point, because those schools, some of them are, you know, trying to help children who, without really strict guardrails around them, just might not turn up in the morning, let alone get a qualification. So they've almost gone to the ends of the earth to make it so strict. It's almost like there's no option for you to fail and not get through this school without a piece of paper. I don't agree with it, but I can see their point. When you've got children that are living in a bedsit with 3 generations, and, you know, parents who have no choice but to be completely concerned with where the next meal's coming from, let alone what their child's well-being, you know, that's not in their world right now, because they've got other priorities. So a school that's saying we need to be ultra strict because at the heart of it, we really care about getting these kids a piece of paper at the end of it, I don't agree with it, but I can see the point. I can see what they're saying. I just don't agree with it. As a general rule, do I think that other schools teaching other children who are not in those very, very desperate situations should adopt that type of policy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's a really, really bad way of going about things. So I guess what I'm saying is that, like you know, we're walking around thinking that we matter, thinking that all of this has some point, and actually never have we been able to answer the question, why are we here? And we don't know. We've got no idea. We're no closer to working out why. So all we can do is try to protect and look after each other on the journey. That's all we can do.
What a lovely way to end that.
Do I get to mic drop on that?
Boom! there's just one more thing. And I always play this game.
Okay.
With everybody that comes on. Now,
this is very
it originates
now.
Well, it originates from when I just had the 3 girls, and, you know, so I'd pick them up from school, and normally they'd have friends in the back as well, and I'd say, "Oh, what did you do today? Don't know."
Yeah, nothing, ate lunch.
Yeah. And so I thought, right, I'm going to develop this. So I asked them all to tell me one good thing, one bad thing, one funny thing.
Yeah.
And it really developed conversations within the car.
Yeah.
Still do it now. It's brilliant.
I do a similar thing with Ivy, actually.
So my question to you, Hayley Peacock, is tell me one good thing. It could be anything at all. It can be a nice cup of coffee that you had this morning, or it can
about
be...
About my day, or about my week?
About your life, about your day, about whatever. One good thing, first thing that comes to your mind.
I literally love my life. So I love my life so much, and I cannot, even though I have my down times, of course everyone does, I have my struggles, I've got too many things I'm trying to juggle, blah, blah, blah. At the core of it, I love my life, and I just want to stretch it out as long as I can.
Oh, that's great.
I just love being on this earth. I really do. So all of it is my good.
That's great. One bad thing.
I am horribly messy, got wild ADHD, which is a right pain in the backside because I lose everything. I forget everything. I drive, my wife and my family mad because for a million reasons, if you know anything about ADHD, it's, it's both my genius and my...
It's your angel and your devil.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, it's my angel and my devil. It's my power, definitely my superpower, but also can be a right pain. So I wish that was a little easier sometimes.
Okay, and then can you think of something funny, something that has made you laugh historically or recently?
Oh, my goodness. So many things make me laugh. It's hard to find something that's not really rude. I'm trying to think of something that's not...
you can do rude ones as well.
I don't know how rude.
Unless we're going to roll it out on the website at school. So.
Yeah, we'll stay away from the really rude. Oh gosh, you put me really on the spot. I'm not sure about the funny one. I think I just try to find humour in all sorts of things. My wife is very silly. She's super silly and she makes me laugh. She was being super silly this morning, silly faces and stuff. And that kind of thing just keeps you going, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just fun, bit of humour in a relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been really lovely talking to you.
Well, it's my favourite subject. So. Being human is my favourite subject.
Oh, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.